The notion that Joe Biden is too old is based on a complete and utter misunderstanding of the work of the presidency. The job is to make decisions, not speeches. History writes about the decisions. That's what matters.
That's what matters. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. Yeah, who remembers the speeches? He's the decider. Can you imagine? Joe Biden, the decider for the United States of America? Remember when W. Bush said he was the decider and the news media jumped all over him, pretending that decider was not a word. It is a word. Our news media is a word too, but I can't use it on the air. Well, happy Friday to you and welcome. I hope that you've had a week that was less crazy. But boy, the Democrats, they make every week more crazy, don't they? And it's an election year, and we're just beginning. We're just beginning the slow buildup. Crazy man, crazy. Joe Biden, that was Lawrence O'Donnell, of course, on MSDNC. He self-describes proudly as a proud socialist, right? He's a proud socialist. He's not a mere liberal. That's Lawrence O'Donnell. He's very unwell. He's a mental case, and defending Joe Biden, no matter what, he'd lay down in front of a train if it would get Joe Biden one more electoral vote when the time comes. He's a fanatic, an extremist, a radical, an MSDNC host.
Unlike you, I am not a progressive. I am not a liberal who's so afraid of the word that I had to change my name to progressive.
I'm not either.
Liberals amuse me. I am a socialist. I live to the extreme left.
Great.
The extreme left of you mere liberals, okay?
They love it. They just love it. Then he blew up a bank. It was peculiar. Looted a Walgreens. They love looting Walgreens, don't they? Did you see the Walgreens downtown where they arrested the manager? I told you about this, for being involved in at least 4 robberies of his own Walgreens. Well, now they've arrested a second manager. There are 2 managers. They're going to have to look at their hiring practices there, I think, at the Walgreens. It's not good. They should profile a little more. They're going to have to do a lot more profiling going forward. Profiling works. Profiling is good. We all profile every day, all day long. It's a remarkable thing. All right, we got a lot to talk about. Joe Biden and the Democrats, they believe that the laws don't apply to them. Joe Biden and the Biden family, they believe the laws don't apply to them. In fact, the only thing we can say for sure, the only law that definitely applies to Joe Biden is the law of gravity, because we've seen him fall down so many times. So we know that the law of gravity applies to Joe Biden. Any other law, maybe not. It's hard to say. So we've got a little Joe Biden for you today. Joe Biden met yesterday with the widow of Alexei Navalny, and it was very nice. Made a photo op and the whole thing, and then he came out and mangled the name of the widow. He called her Yolanda. Hey, Yolanda. Her name is not Yolanda. Her name is Yulia, like Julia, and with a Y because it's Russia and everything. But Yulia was there meeting with Joe Biden, and he came out and called her Yolanda. Hey, Yolanda! That's Joe Biden. He's not a bright man. He's not a smart man. He's the decider. It's an amazing thing. Yeah, so he met with Navalny's family in sensitively arranged meeting. That's what the White House and the media said, because the media, they're just like Pravda and TASS for the Kremlin when it comes to covering the Democrat Party. I'm making quotation marks with my fingers. The only way they cover the Democrat Party is by sleeping on top of them. That's which happens a lot. That's for sure. So we got that. He met with the family, and it was sensitively arranged. Then he came out and he called Yulia Yolanda. Hey, Yolanda. And completely useless. He should be fired just for that. He should be impeached just for calling her Yolanda, because Yolanda is not a Russian name. I think that was probably them pandering to the black vote again, don't you think? Hey, Yolanda. What is her name? Is not Yolanda. She's from Russia. What are you? Honestly, come on. And the Biden White House announcing that today And they had our old Russian playbook friend, Victoria Nuland, come out, State Department official in the Obama-Biden administration, and now again in the Biden administration, because, then they get rich in between by being corrupt. It's a pretty good arrangement that they've worked out for themselves. But more sanctions for Russia because, they killed Navalny. Alexei Navalny was killed in a gulag at the Arctic Circle. And so now they really mean it when they talking about sanctions. And they say they're going to impose 500 new sanctions against Russia. But they've been telling us for the last 2 years that they have maxed out their sanctions against Russia. And it turns out that was a lie. That was a big, fat, fatuous lie from a gang of really corrupt people who lie all the time. That'd be the Biden administration, more broadly the Democrats. And that includes the media when I say Democrats. So Russia-Ukraine war. U.S. announces more than 500 sanctions against Russia. How are there still 500 sanctions left to impose? I heard Ambassador and former Director of National Intelligence Rick Grenell on the radio this morning talking to Larry O'Connor and Patrice Onwuka doing their show, their WMAL, their excellent WMAL show from CPAC down at National Harbor in Maryland near Washington, D.C. And Rick Grenell said, we have no sanctions on the top 10 banks in Russia. And of course, these are all run by Putin stooges, Putin oligarchs, because everything is corrupt in Russia because commies, that's the thing. And the top 10 banks in Russia, no sanctions against them. Now they're announcing there are 500 new sanctions going in against individuals and institutions. And they say they're going to target Putin's war machine. This occurred to you last night because haven't we been talking about this Ukraine-Russia war for some time now? Aren't we 2 years in? And now the Biden administration says, that's it. We're serious this time. This time, 500 sanctions, not just 2 or 3 sanctions. We're talking about 500 sanctions. And this time we're going to target Putin's ability to make war in Ukraine 2 years into the war. So wait a minute. We were passively supporting Putin's war effort by not sanctioning the war machine because in the meantime, we're fueling our military-industrial complex in the U.S. with $113 billion taxpayer dollars, which Antony Blinken, our alleged chief diplomat, who is a useless nub, saying, hey, don't worry about it. 90% of it stays here in the United States, never even leaves because it goes right into the pockets of the military-industrial complex, which then turn around and fund the Democrat Party because corruption is their bag baby, and they love death more than we love life. They've stolen the old Al-Qaeda mantra, we love death more than you love life, the Democrat Party. They love harvesting the organs of millions of, especially black babies. They snuff out 40% of that population in the womb, the party of slavery and Jim Crow does. But setting aside, 500 new sanctions today because Yolanda asked for it. Oh, wait, her name's not Yolanda. It's Yulia. Yulia's a very pretty name. It's Julia with a Russian lilt. And it is Yulia, Y-U-L-I-A, Yulia. And not Yolanda, Skippy. What, you hit your head again? The effects of gravity, the laws of gravity affecting you again? What a basket case our president is. Extraordinary stuff. In the meantime, Vlad the Impaler Putin is bragging about how up-to-date his nuclear arsenal is. He said they just hit refresh on their nuclear arsenal, and it's going real well. And Putin went for a flight in a nuclear-capable Russian bomber and got some photo ops and stuff. Looked like fun. It's always fun flying in a bomber. And there's Putin sending signal to West with flight on nuclear-capable bomber. I think he's threatening us because they're completely unafraid of Joe Biden because they know that he's a maroon and he's not in charge of anything. And they know that, Obama's on their side because he was mentored by a commie and made a commie the CIA director. And then the commie he made a CIA director undermined our presidential election. So naturally, Putin, and then Putin was asked again yesterday by a Russian reporter, asked a question, and he told him that he supports Biden. This is the second time that Putin endorsed Biden. And the Democrat Party is so mentally ill that when you point that out, they say, yeah, well, that's because everything Putin says, it's the opposite. And really, that means he supports Trump. You need a brain scan. You honestly tilt your head to the side, pound the side of your head with the heel of your hand and see if anything falls out, because there's something terribly wrong with you. Amazing stuff. Conservative circus radio show host, and this is a great friend of mine, James T. Harris in Arizona. He was driving to work, and he was shot at, and a bullet hit his car. And he posted a video of the bullet wound in the side of his car, and a second car was hit. And James T. Harris, a great friend, great guy, James T. posted the video, and apparently another car was shot at too. And he's like, this is about the Democrat Party's crime wave, the coast-to-coast Democrat Party crime wave. And my friend James T., just a great guy. You'd hang out with him all day long and have a riot. And a great radio talk show host as well, James T. And he said, well, this is the world that the Democrat Party has created, the country that the Democrat Party has created. Police say that they are looking. They don't have a description of the gunman, but they say it's a Democrat. So we got that going. Amazing stuff. Speaking of Democrats, Chicago Board of Education voted unanimously to remove all police officers from Chicago public schools because they want more kids shot and killed. And so they're doing everything they can to arrange for that. Amazing stuff. And another Democrat story, transgender cop killer smirks at relatives this isn't the cop killer transgender. That's a different transgender. The transgender killer smirks at relatives of Portland cab driver. This is a cab driver who he viciously stabbed to death from the back seat by stabbing him over and over and over again. And the cab driver he was a bass player for the Smashing Pumpkins, the band Smashing Pumpkins, and was an all-around fun guy, and everybody loved the guy. And he was working hard, make some extra money, working as a cab driver in Portland, Oregon, and a transgender mental case stabbed him to death after being confused in the back seat. And now the left-wing district attorney gave the crazed transgender murderer who is completely without remorse a nice plea deal, a nice plea bargain. And all the news media is calling this bearded guy she, because the most corrupt institution in America is the news media. And I'll update you on that. Amazing stuff. Now, here's the other one. Illegal alien migrant charged in deputy's death. This is madness. This is typical Democrat Party stuff. We're a mentally ill culture, thanks to the Democrat Party. Migrant charged in deputy's death files civil rights lawsuit, cites his disability of not knowing English. His disability is not knowing English. The Democrats will add that to their list of disabilities. We should add Democrat to the list of disabilities too, because that's obviously sort of the epicenter of mental illness in America is the Democrat Party, and that should be considered a disability. And you shouldn't be allowed to own firearms, legally or illegally. Most Democrats, I think, own guns illegally, and they go around shooting people. You guys should stop shooting everybody. How about that? That'd be nice. I think so. So this illegal alien, and he speaks some obscure native tongue that apparently not even Spanish. He doesn't even speak Spanish. He doesn't speak English. He doesn't speak Spanish. He speaks, like umlaut. And apparently every police officer in America is supposed to speak umlaut too, because he can't communicate. And then he gets in a fight resisting arrest with cops, and one police officer dies. And now he's suing, get this, he's suing the family of the cop that died for their personal fortune. This guy should be catapulted into the Pacific Ocean with extreme prejudice. And 4 illegal aliens living in a migrant shelter in Chicago have been arrested for robbing and strangling a man on a subway train. And they're going to court today, where the Democrats are going to try to find some way to give them a cash award and give them your apartment and your daughter. The Democrat Party is very, very unwell. Yes, sir. Man, oh man. In Israel, Israeli authorities have said they have video that shows a United Nations employee there taking the body of an Israeli shot October 7th, part of the attack. The United Nations was part of the attack on Israel on October 7th. And the Democrat Party is completely in with Hamas, a genocidal Islamist terror group. And the Democrat Party, they love death more than we love life. Also, the amazing story of CBS News correspondent Catherine Herridge, who is a real reporter and was fired by CBS unceremoniously. And then they raided her files and her laptops and so on and stole all of her information, which belonged to her, because the most corrupt institution in America is the news media. We had blackouts yesterday, pharmacies nationwide from a cyber attack. We had the phones go out yesterday. First it was solar flare activity. They lied to us. Then maybe it was the Chinese hacking us. And now, oh no, it was just a software update. Pay no attention. But it was a warning nonetheless. We sent a vehicle back to the moon for the first time in a long time. No people on it, though. Next time they send it, I want to be on it. I want to go get a moon rock, add it to my rock collection. You know, rocks from around the world. I'd like one from the moon. And we are at 888-630-9625. Hey, it's Chris Plant, excited to tell you about our July 2024 Listener Sea Cruise. We'll be sailing around the British Isles, visiting Scotland and Ireland. Please join us. Visit ChrisPlantCruise.com. Democrats have so many good ideas, don't they? Pulling police officers out of Chicago public schools, that's going to turn out well. If you're a casket maker, I'm thinking the Democrats have a lot of casket makers in their families, a lot of morticians in their families. I also think they invest heavily in arms manufacturers and ammunition manufacturers, and then they undo the laws and create Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome because they're not really on our side, and they're not good at anything. Like civilization, they're definitely not good at civilization. It has to be explained to them, and then they don't understand it. Let's take you know what? I probably don't have enough time to take a good phone call, do I? I don't want to give short shrift to our beloved listeners who are wise and well-humored and well-informed and care about the world and want to save it. So that means not a lot of Democrats, not a lot. But, you know, you're welcome if you're a Democrat. If you're willing to learn, you're welcome here in our humble radio broadcast. Oh, and Joe Biden, I didn't even get to this. Joe Biden, it's the Daily Mail. The Daily Mail has a story on Joe Biden. They got a hold of his real daily schedule. And I've got Joe Biden's real daily schedule, not the fake daily schedule, but people inside the White House leaking to the Daily Mail, which is British, about Joe Biden, when he wakes up, how he wakes up, what he does then, about his work day. And when I share this with you, I think you'll agree that he should step down as president. He's not a bright man. He's not a good man. He's not a hardworking man. He's not an earnest man. He's not an honest man. He's a corrupt man. He lies all the time. And he doesn't really do anything. That's because he's a sock puppet. And up the hole in his sock is, of course, Barack Obama. We won't get fooled again, although we probably will. When you make a lie so big. Yeah, and I want to share with you Joe Biden's day at work. That's the euphemism. We call it his day at work, but it's really not his day at work, is it? It's not a day at work at all. Let's go to, before we do that, and get to Joe Biden's day, thanks to the Daily Mail. Let's go to Greg, calling from Olympia, Washington. Gregory, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Good morning, Chris. I was watching a video on YouTube before they canceled me yesterday. Talk about tyranny. And I watched a video by noted Canadian psychologist, author, and speaker Jordan Peterson, who said about the Jean-Paul Sartre era of French radicals and socialists that at the end of the decade, quote, you couldn't be conscious and thinking and pro-Marxist.
I think that's true. The more aware you are, the less likely you are to be Vladimir Putin or Bernie Sanders or, John Penitentiary Face Brennan or so many different Democrats out there. The whole squad. They've made they've made mass murder and Marxism, which go hand in glove, very fashionable because they're the left and they have secured information dominance and to a very large extent cultural dominance in the United States and the West. And they tell us a lot of things that are not true. Now, Greg, you said that, but they own the educational institutions and the media and so on. The left does, and their message dominates. But you said you were banned by YouTube, and you were watching Jordan Peterson on YouTube, and you got in trouble with YouTube.
Yeah, it seems like whenever I don't do porn, I'm not a racist, I'm not into child sex, I don't do anything that's really bad. The only thing that I do that's bad is I tell the truth about the leftists, and they don't like that. And I go online, and there's this one group online which has made it their business to single me and other people on certain websites, single us out for retribution or to stamp us out to keep us from posting the truth.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we can't ignore, and it's like everyone will eventually meet with this. So think about it now.
Yeah, you're right. The left will, they want control. They want to control your speech. They want to control your thought. We were warned about these people by George Orwell and less so Jean-Paul Sartre, but we've been warned about these people. They are authoritarian in their orientation. Their nature is to oppress and to dominate. They are not liberals. They are the left. And leftists are the opposite of liberal. They're the most illiberal people you're going to encounter on the political landscape. And today's Democrat Party, they're not liberals. They're the left. Barack Obama is not a liberal. He's a leftist. And the communist voter, CIA director under Barack Obama, John Brennan, who voted for Gus Hall, the Communist Party candidate for the presidency of the United States, and then, of course, was welcomed into the Obama-Biden administration and made CIA director, and then he tampered in our presidential election. Although I saw on MSDNC that they came up with a new lie on MSDNC. If you think you're getting your news from MSDNC, you are wrong about everything, including the question of whether you're getting your news from MSDNC or not. You're getting radical left-wing propaganda from the likes of Lawrence O'Donnell, who's not a mere liberal. He's a socialist, which means that he's a Marxist. And, they're the killingest, stealingest gang of criminals in the history of humankind, but pay no attention to that. And so you've been banned from YouTube because you don't say the right things. And, I like to say, Greg, another one of my sayings, I have a lot of sayings, is nothing gets you in trouble like the truth. And I say that because it's true. Nothing gets you in trouble like the truth. We live in a dangerous and peculiar era. And the lie carries the day most of the time. The big lie, as Gurgle used to call it, and these Democrats have adopted so many of the elements of the radical extremist political movements of the 20th century, and they're keeping them alive. They've had to resuscitate some of them. But I got to tell you, the Socialist Workers' Party of Adolf Hitler and the big lie and Joseph Goebbels and the anti-Semitism which the Democrat Party has animated here in the United States from the campuses of Harvard and MIT and beyond and George Washington University to the streets of our major American cities with from the river to the sea, which means let's wipe out Israel and kill all the Jews in Israel. And the Democrat Party has made that one of their mantras. They have many mantras, but that one is front and center right now. These are extraordinary times, Greg. And you're right, free speech is very much under assault because the left does not believe in allowing free speech, because free speech means that the truth gets out, as you've just been pointing out about Marxism and leftism, and that's why they have to trample that message to keep the truth from getting out, because the truth is not good for them.
One more thing before I go.
Yes, sir.
The phrase "you couldn't be conscious and thinking and pro-Marxist," I think that should be something we could consider to be our sword and shield as we try to spread the word what's happening to our country, because a lot of people don't understand what's wrong with Marxism. They think, well, it's just a valid way of thinking and way of philosophizing. No, you can't be conscious and thinking and pro-Marxist. That's the point.
Yeah, I think so, and that's why they want to either knock you unconscious or keep you from thinking.
Yeah,
that's the left. Greg, beautiful day in Olympia, Washington.
So far, so good, but it's still dark.
Oh, yeah, it's still dark out. Of course it is. Yeah, I wake up in the dark, too. Greg, thank you very much, my friend. Thank you for thinking and being conscious. I think that those are good things. And those are two things that are dangerous to the left as well. But I'm going to have to go find that because that's good stuff. Now, let me get to the Daily Mail from yesterday, because they have a great story about Joe Biden, and the New York Times does not, and 60 Minutes is not working on the piece even as we speak, and the Washington Post would never report it, even if they read it, and they probably don't, because, as I've said, and I say it because it's true, most of the news media in Washington and in New York don't actually follow the news. It's another circle fest in a hot tub. They follow what their pals do, that they take hot tubs with, and that's it. They think they're getting their news from MSDNC, and who was it the other day? It was, what's his name? I remember who it was, on MSDNC, who said that the fact that the Biden Justice Department has arrested Smirnov, the Ukrainian FBI informant, means that the Felonious 51, with their big lie letter about the Hunter Biden laptop having all the earmarks of Russian disinformation, MSDNC, if you watch them, they say, see, the 51 were right, because now they've arrested the trusted FBI, highly paid FBI confidential source, their informant from Ukraine, who was a solid source of information for them for nearly a decade and a half, for well over a decade. But now that he's been arrested at Harry Reid International Airport and thrown into shackles, now it turns out that means, if you watch MSDNC, that the Felonious 51 with their big lie letter that all the liars signed on to, just amazing stuff.
The revelation of a Russian-linked informant here comes nearly 4 years after many in the American intelligence community warned Moscow was behind many of the allegations being levied at the Biden family. In a 2020 letter, 51 former U.S. intel officials expressed concern about the source of a much-discussed story on the right, Hunter Biden's laptop.
On the right. But the left-wing radicals, and that's Willie Geist, who is a chapstick-wearing fluffer for the left, and then they go to this famous and notorious liar that NBC News calls a reporter. His name is Ken Delanian, and says, well, the fact that the Biden administration ordered the arrest of someone who's politically inconvenient for them, that proves that the big lie of 3 years ago was not a big lie, but it was actually true, and that the Hunter Biden laptop story really was Russian disinformation. This lie, honestly, Joseph Goebbels himself was never as shameless as Willie Geist and Ken Delanian and NBC fake news.
So, Willie, those 51 former intelligence officials, they paid a steep price for signing that letter. The House Republicans conducted an investigation. They brought some of them in to testify under oath.
Oh, no.
Republicans said this was election interference. This was a bogus attempt to suppress a legitimate story.
Which
and
it was.
As it turns out, they were right. Not in the sense, they said that the laptop was part of a Russian information operation or had all the hallmarks of a Russian information operation. They didn't say that the contents of the laptop were made up. And obviously, we know that they weren't. Many of them have been now corroborated.
Obviously.
What they said was they were suspicious about why that story was emerging in the middle of an election campaign.
We know why.
And whether Russian intelligence was flogging it or was somehow amplifying it.
Now blame Rudy Giuliani.
They've been proven correct.
No, they haven't. That is a lie so big that he should be in handcuffs. He should be at Gitmo trying to breathe through the waterboarding that's happening. That is the biggest lie. It is very rare that even in corrupt Washington media circles, Democrat Party circles, that you get a lie that big. That lie is gigantic. It is so huge. It is so fatuous. It is so disgraceful. That is Some of the emails have been confirmed. Oh, but the other ones were planted by the Russians on Hunter Biden's laptop. And gosh, yeah, how did this surface at that time? Well, because Hunter Biden, we know all the details of this. The store owner who did the Mac repair stuff had to go into hiding because he's been terrorized by the left to the point that he believes his life is in danger. And, honestly, if Joe Biden sexually assaulted a staffer on Capitol Hill, she's had to go into hiding as well. And the news media buried her in a shallow grave as well. And there's Ken Delaney and Willie Geist, who are bigger liars than Joseph Goebbels. Joseph Goebbels would never pretend that he could get away with a lie that big. But these guys, the lie is so big that I think they're the only ones that would not dare believe it. Yeah, they were proven right. No. Yeah, why did it come out at this time? We know all about it. Everybody's been interviewed. We know exactly the timeline because those terrible Republicans on Capitol Hill investigated. And those poor people that paid such a heavy price, they came up to Capitol Hill and had lunch and they talked to people for a few minutes. Oh, it was like a gulag north of the Arctic Circle. Honestly, you people are a disgrace to like bipedal mammals. You're an absolute disgrace.
Did I hear you correctly say that perhaps he was influenced by Gergel?
Yeah, I think that's possible. Might have been influenced by Gergel. That's their resident historian and Tawana Brawley agent. Where is Tawana Brawley? Why isn't she still in the news? What has Al Sharpton done with Tawana Brawley? Did he torture and kill her? Did he kidnap her? What happened to Tawana Brawley? Why isn't Tawana Brawley still famous? Shouldn't she have a show on MSDNC after Jen Psaki? That's our news media, honestly. And if you think you're getting news, if you watch MSDNC and you believe what you're being told, you are a maroon. You are a beep. Mentally incapacitated beep. A word that's too impolite to use here. But that is just extraordinary stuff. We had that a couple of days ago. We didn't get to it. But MSDNC. Yeah. So and you know why it was proven that now the 51 are because Biden's Justice Department arrested someone that is politically inconvenient to the Biden family. Wow. And that proves that 3 years ago, when communist voter penitentiary face Brennan and 50 other criminals signed on to a big lie that was designed to corrupt our presidential election and did, because polls afterward showed that at least 8% of people said that the reporting, had they known about it and believed it to be true, which it was, might have changed their vote, and that would have swung the presidential election away from Joe Biden and in favor of President Trump. So were they stealing the election? I've been saying for a long time now, I heard somebody else say it a couple of days ago on television, we pay the CIA to corrupt other people's elections, not ours. But since Barack Obama put a communist in charge of the CIA with John Brennan, a.k.a. penitentiary face, they corrupted our presidential election on behalf of the Democrat Party, the left. Amazing. Barack Obama, Frank Marshall Davis, and the sock puppet, Joe Biden. Speaking of the sock puppet, Joe Biden, here's the headline in the Daily Mail. Daily Mail did the story and the Washington Post didn't, and the New York Times didn't because they don't do this. Hour by sleepy hour, the very revealing details of a frail 81-year-old Biden's day, woken by his cat, no work before 10 a.m., physical therapy and slip-proof sneakers, and aides constantly terrified of disaster. That's scratching the surface. I've got the Daily Mail piece here. That's right, Joe Biden. Wait till you hear the details here. He wakes up with the CPAP machine on his face, but he only wakes up when his cat walks across him. What's his cat's name? Is it Poppy Harlow? It's not nice to make fun of unemployed women, middle-aged women in television. It's terrible. It's very sad. With porn names, I'm sure she'll be fine. Yeah, but when you hear the details of Joe Biden's work day, you'll agree that he should step down. All right, the Daily Mail reports that Joe Biden wakes up when his cat Willow walks across his face, the bleary-eyed with sleep apnea machine strapped to his face. Biden wakes up most morning when his cat Willow crawls across him. He's got a cat named Willow? Why would you call your cat Willow? It's, I don't know, let me see. If this were a game show, what would we say? Blank Willow. Blank Willow. Wait a minute, your cat is named Willow? Blank Willow? All right, I'll just move on. But there it is. When his cat Willow crawls across him, that's when he wakes up. After getting out of bed, he heads for a 45-minute workout. Sure he does. Wait a minute. With his physical therapist. So he wakes up to physical therapy after his cat wakes him up with his sleep apnea machine on. And with his physical therapist, they focus on balance exercises to stop him from falling and to deal with his increasingly stiff gait. You know, he walks funny. The president then wanders down to the Oval Office at about 10 a.m. About 10 a.m. he wanders down the Oval Office, and the public events, his schedule is limited to 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., that's a 6-hour day. The White House staff says because that's when he's at his sharpest, and that's not very sharp. His news conferences, rare though they may be, are heavily limited, and he's just half the number of Obama, probably about a quarter of the number of Trump. By the way, Trump was up at 6 a.m., because he was tweeting, and Trump was then up from 11 p.m. until 2 a.m., we know because he was tweeting, and he's tweeting about policy and all kinds of stuff. Also, to mitigate the risk of him falling, the Secret Service has added another agent that stands at the bottom of the Air Force One stairs in case he falls. That's a sign. That's a symbol. And the commander-in-chief tends to wear slip-resistant sneakers. Of course he does. He should really move to Florida. Rather than dress shoes that would usually go with his $2,000 custom-made Italian suits. Only a millionaire would wear $2,000 custom-made Italian suits. It's amazing stuff. So it's 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. He wakes up with a cat on his face, a cat named Willow. And this is the President of the United States. Something needs to be done about this. And then his dog is biting the Secret Service all day long.